Well, hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you back to another live edition of our show, the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner, with your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert. And I appreciate you joining us this evening. For those of you that can't join us live, we're always glad to see you watching the recorded shows, and we appreciate your participation. As you know, that it's your participation that helps make our show successful. And I also want to thank you because it's also helped us make the list of the top 25 podcasts in Northern Virginia to watch. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate your participation and emails. So please keep them coming. Before we get started tonight, of course, I do want to take just a moment to talk about our sponsors. And of course, First Quest Jewelers from Muirfield, Virginia. For those of you that have been watching the show, you'll know that I talk about Quest Jewelers rather regularly, of course, because they've been a sponsor for us for over 3 years. And holidays are coming up, folks. Christmas is soon going to be here, so I encourage you, take a look at their website there. You can see it, questjewelers.com. There's their number. You can always give them a call and talk to them, and they'll be more than help you out with any purchase that you'd like to make. So please give them a call. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business owned by retired Army Warden Officer C.K. Park. CK has offices and employees around the United States as they actually support a number of both government and private sector contracts. If your business is in need of help with IT, security, training, professional development, performance management, whatever you need, he's got a crew there that can help you. So give them a call. They'll be more than happy to talk to you. I also want to thank our newest sponsor, Hill & Ponton. Hill & Ponton are veteran disability attorneys located in Florida, and you can see their website, hillandponton.com. Hill & Ponton's been around for about 30 years, folks, and I will tell you they specialize in assisting veterans and veteran family members in navigating that myriad of mazes called the Veterans Administration when they need help. They also provide recorded webinars on their website with information, and also live webinars that you can sign up for. So give them a call if you're having problems with your veterans claim, or your family has questions, or they need help. They'll be more than happy to call you. To talk with you. So please give them a call. All right. So I want to talk about our guests tonight. And first, of course, tonight we have with us Laura Nichols. And of course, Laura has been on the show before. It's been a little while back, but we wanted to have her come on because when she was on the first time, Laura was actually working on a new children's book, which is about to come out, and it'll be available on Amazon.com, I think, within about a week. But Laura, she has written a book about the military child and the Army brat, and we're going to talk about that. Military brats, well-traveled lives. So we're going to talk about that here during the show. But first, Laura, I want to say thank you and welcome back and thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Yeah, it's been good. That's why I wanted to circle back with you now that your book is getting ready to come out in about a week. It'll be live on Amazon.com. People will be able to find it. And I wanted to get you back on because it's interesting. You not only grew up a military brat, an Army brat, but then you also married a career military man, an Army chaplain. So you've pretty much lived the military life and been around it, pretty much your whole life. So I think if there's somebody that's qualified to talk about this, I think it would be you, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. So I just want to share with the audience, though, before we talk a little more about that, Laura actually got 2 master's degrees, and she has spent time, not only that, but gaining other teaching certificates, and has spent her career as a teacher, an assistant principal, and about a 40-year career in education. And you currently work as an adjunct at George Mason University, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and I know that you're also heavily involved with the Delta Kappa Gamma Society International for leading women educators. So it sounds like, you've been keeping yourself really busy in addition to writing the book. So,
Well, you have
uh,
to stay busy and use your mind.
well, yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about you, though, before we talk about the book, because I want to let our audience know, your background a little bit more and how you came to do what you're doing. And I understand that your father was an Army non-commissioned officer, and you were born in Wiesbaden, Germany, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that. You went to Dodge schools, I'm assuming, over there
Mhm.
as
And I
well?
taught in some Dodge schools.
Oh, you did teach in some
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my youngest went to the Dodds High School in Würzburg, Germany, and
Oh, wow.
graduated from there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did not realize that you had taught in the
I
Dodge
taught in
school.
Kaiserslautern. My first teaching job in Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so well, why don't you share with our audience a little bit what you saw is growing up, as an Army brat, and we'll talk about your dad here in just a few minutes. But in the Dodge schools, what do you see? Kind of explain to our audience a little bit what you see as the difference between the Dodge schools and what you see here in the States that our civilian children attend.
Well, I feel the Dodge School in my heart. I've taught in all types of schools in inner city, small rural towns, all over in the South, the North, the West. So the Dodge School, I consider those to be the best schools around
Yeah,
because the schools include children from all over the world and you have experiences that you share. And I feel like the curriculum is different because you actually get to go on field trips and see natural, what I call wonders of the world. And you take that information and you can learn. And also when you go to Dodge schools, usually if it's abroad, you have a host nation teacher where you can learn the language of
yeah,
the country in the country where you live. So to me, the curriculum is the standards-based curriculum. So it is commensurate with what you would have in the regular public schools. But children, to me, are very well disciplined and they love learning. The parents work with you. To I, as a child, I felt safe in the Dodge schools
hmm,
because they do also address needs of students when their parents have to deploy or go abroad
yeah.
or when you're moving, the counselors work with the students and everyone seems to love their job. So to me, they're the cream of the crop.
Well,
A lot of the
oh, go ahead. I'm
a
sorry. Go
lot of
ahead.
the schools are closing down and they're merging them into the regular communities. So I feel like some of the support systems that you've had aren't there when students go to other schools, although they're trying to do that now. But to me, I felt like I had the best education because I went to school in Japan, New Mexico, Kentucky, New Jersey, just about everywhere.
Yeah.
And and so to me that learning curve was high and I was taught that I could do whatever I had my mindset to do. And there
We,
weren't blockers in the way that you might have in some civilian schools.
well, the other piece of that too, you were talking about the children were well disciplined, and one thing I noticed differently, of course, because my tours over in Europe, I had a younger son in school, and we were tasked with providing monitors on the school buses because they travel from the school off, into the German countryside and take the kids all over. So the military actually was tasked with providing bus monitors from the units to ride with the kids. And that gave us an opportunity. We had some good conversations with some of the kids about all kinds of things. And I think that's another different thing that I saw when I was over there was the the direct contact with not only the school but with members of the military community, even when the kids were off campus and things that, you just, it's not quite the same that you see here. So yeah, I know it made a difference because my son also had several German speaking teachers. And I think that was a plus as well. So yeah, I mean, the point is well noted in Dodd schools, the differences there. And I'm sure a lot of that groomed you to be ready to write the book that you wrote. So your dad's interesting. Your father not only was in during the Korean War, but your father also did several tours in Vietnam.
Right. Dad was drafted into the Korean War at a young age.
Yeah.
And even when he served in the Vietnam conflict, he when he came back to America, he's like 38. And not too recently did I realize that Dad was so young going to war.
Yeah. How old was he when he was drafted?
He was like 17 or 18, somewhere around there.
Oh, goodness. So
right out of high school. Right out of high school.
What year was that?
I would say 50, 52, 53, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So right during around the last year of the Korean War.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So he served in Korea, and then he came home, like you said, and
served in Vietnam.
2 tours in Vietnam. And so what did he do? What did he do in the service?
My father worked with supply.
Okay.
Usually with supply, with the engineering. I guess that's considered a good job for an enlisted soldier.
Yeah, I mean, well, supply and logistics. Of course, when I was a first sergeant, I had an S4 for our battalion in my company that did all the supply and logistics for the battalion. But of course, each company has the supply and logistics and a supply sergeant and those type of people that are responsible for supplying the company or making sure that, the whole unit is supplied. The interesting thing about that was I also had a dining facility. So I was responsible for the battalion dining facility to feed about 400 soldiers every day. So
my uncle,
yeah, go ahead.
My uncle was in the Navy and he was a cook on the Navy ship. I don't know which ship, but yeah, my mother's brother.
Okay.
So, and then my younger uncle, he's still living. He's pretty young. He went to Korea at a young age too.
Wow. So you've had not only your father, but your family members.
Yeah, but Dad Dad made the career of it, and then my Navy uncle made a career of it too.
Okay, as well as your husband.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So you met your husband. Where did you meet him? And your husband was a chaplain, right?
I met him at Fort Knox.
Yeah,
I was teaching school at Fort Knox.
How did that happen?
Oh, that's a long story. I came home I met him when I came home from Ohio State, and he was with a group of friends, and I met him at the back then you rode the Greyhound bus, right?
Yeah, yep, yeah.
And he was at the bus station with some friends, and that's when I met him. And my mother kept telling me about a chaplain. My mother worked at the officers club, and she kept telling me, I met this nice young chaplain.
As mothers always do, right?
Yeah. So I always said my mother picked him out.
So how long have you been married?
44 years. I don't know. I'm the one that's bad with the years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's over 40 years?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
We're old.
No, congratulations. That's wonderful. Just to share with you, I have a World War II veteran who lives right down from me in one of the assisted living communities. And his wife is still there. He is now, I think, 101. And his wife is still alive and lives with him in a little apartment there. And when he appeared on my show about 2 holidays ago, he and his wife had been married 75 years.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I can imagine.
See what you have to look forward to?
Yes. Yes. But it's been a good life.
Yeah.
It's had its ups and downs.
Sure.
But for the most part, I'm most comfortable when I'm around people that are connected with the military.
Yeah.
It's kind of part of my fiber, you know.
So is your husband's retired now, right, from the
He's
military?
retired and he worked with the Federal Service for 20 years.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
So,
I can understand that. I retired from the Army and did the same thing and just retired from federal service last December 31st. So
wow.
yeah, I can it's it's always amazing to talk to people and find out, how many of us veterans kind of take it, you're into that public service thing and you kind of
Mhm,
it kind of follows you through pretty much your whole life, and
mhm.
I think that kind of bleeds into a little bit about what we'll talk about too with your book here in just a few minutes. So it's great, I mean, you've traveled all over and being the military brat as they like to call them. Did you ever take any issue with the term military brat?
Well, sometimes you wonder in the book that when I start out in the beginning of the book, that was the premise for starting the book, and
Yeah,
I speak of what a military brat is and where the
yeah,
term came from, and it originated with the British Regiment Attached Travelers. They had British soldiers that used to take their families abroad, and so then
okay,
they started calling them the British Regiment Attached Travelers. And then later on, we don't use that term now, but military families did start traveling with
yeah.
the soldiers, service members.
So British Regiment of Travelers, so BRT or Brat, I guess you could
It's
say.
attached traveler, yeah.
Attached traveler, yeah, Brat. I never realized that. I spent
Yeah.
my whole military career referring to my kids as Army brats, and never realized the origin of that term. So see, yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I learned something,
Yeah.
as well myself.
That
So,
came with a little research because I actually came to America um, on a Navy ship. The
okay.
family members used to travel across the waters abroad. Um, that's how we came into America, and we traveled back and forth to Asia and places like that. So I came on the U.S. Man, the TAP 112, which led to history of the ship and how it was used with the Prime Minister of Korea. So in researching for the book, you had some topics, and I'm like, I want to back it up with some research, and then I found other
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Like I said, I never realized where the term came from. So, um,
So in the book, I have a copy of the certificate that I was given.
ah,
It's one of the few artifacts I have, after your parents pass on.
yeah,
To me, it was a treasure because it led me to the commander of the ship and the history behind the ship.
wow. Yeah, and I know from as you look at going to write about a particular subject, of course, you always want to make sure you have the correct information, you have accurate information
Mhm,
because that's important. And even if you're just writing from your personal experiences,
mhm.
anything that goes outside that realm of personal experience, you want to be able to feel confident that you're, giving people the right information. So yeah, I think that's very important. All right, so Laura, what we're going to do is we're going to take just a short break, and when
Okay.
we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about your book, Military Brats, Well-Traveled Lives. And, I want to get into some of it with you and have you share some of what you wrote in the book with the audience. So we'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors.
Thank you.
In service of our nation, you gave everything you had. You sacrificed your comfort, your peace, and sometimes even your well-being. Over 3 decades, Hill and Ponton has helped to be a guiding light for veterans seeking their rightful disability benefits. When our heroes are in need, we are not just lawyers. We're an ally, a team who understands the struggles you faced. If you're a veteran seeking the benefits you deserve, let us stand with you on this journey, because every battle deserves a hero, and no hero should fight alone.
I can't hear.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical problems here. You're listening to Going Solo Veterans Corner. We have our host, which is retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and I believe he's right here with us now. Hello, Paul.
I made it back, yes.
Yes, we had a little bit of technical problems there, but now no worries. And we'll just move on with our wonderful guest here tonight, Laura Nichols. And I'm going to go down and I'll let you take on over.
Okay, thank you, CC. And sorry about that, folks, but it happens every once in a while. And I even got booted out of my own show. How about that? Didn't get fired, but I got booted out. But I was able to log back in. I'm not sure what happened, but we apologize. That's all right. So, as CC said, you've been watching the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And, of course, our guest tonight is not only military spouse and Army brat and educator, Laura Nichols. And Laura was a guest previously on the show, and I wanted her to come back because she's now coming out with her book, which should be out on Amazon stuff in about a week. Military Brats, Well-Traveled Lives. So, Laura, before the break, we were talking a little bit, just about the background and some of the history and everything and your background. I want to talk now about the book itself and you living that life as a military brat coming up and going through all that, and then being married to a veteran as well, and having a military spouse. So I noticed your book has 9 chapters, and I wanted to kind of talk about a few of them and get you to share some information with us. And one of the first, chapter 1, you talk in the book about learning from mom. And it seems to be, that's always so important. And the moms are such an influence in a military home because they have to hold the fort down, so to speak, so often and actually act as mom and dad. So share a little bit of that with us. What did you include in there, or what was so important about that?
Well, the story begins with I'm speaking to my mom. We go to the commissary, and people always approach you, and they use the term military brat quite a bit. At least they did in my childhood. Yeah. And I start the story out with my mom asking her, why do people call us military brats? And then this leads into the whole story of why you are a military brat and why you're awesome. You're transient, you sacrifice, but you're a person that can make a difference, and you have a story that you can tell. So mom starts telling the story with me about my life as we grew up in the military. And that's the importance of learning from mom. And we're sitting at a table, we drinking some milk, eating some cookies, and then the story goes on with all the different things that military children are exposed to, and how they live their lives, and how their lives are a little different than a civilian life.
Yeah. Like I said, I know, that becomes so important, especially learning from your parents. So if your mother is in the service and your father isn't, or vice versa, that parent that remains in the home, I know, becomes so important, because they are the glue that holds everything together, when that veteran, that service member is gone.
And
So, yeah, go ahead.
And I speak about that in the chapter where I speak about deployment and my dad going to Vietnam and how all that, dad was gone a year, but that whole year, tears come flooding down, from her face, down her face, because all the pressure of being a military spouse, carrying all the weight while the soldier is gone.
Yeah.
Things usually happen during that time period.
Yeah, I mean, that can be very traumatic too, especially I know when that military person is deployed to a combat zone, and it can become very stressful on the family. So, I know it's important to have that stability at the home, and in so many military households, I think still more often than not, it's the mom who is keeping that home stable. So I see that's an important piece of how you started.
And
Well,
you
yeah,
also have, you also have friends and a community. You're almost like a family. In the military, your neighbors become your family.
Yeah.
And so during those times, you have the support from your neighbors.
Yeah, it's I remember going through some of that myself because for a time when I was young, I was a military brat as well. So I remember traveling around, living on an air base and off the air base, and a lot of the things that you're talking about, I remember from my childhood. One thing before we move on though is you're talking about. Well, this actually kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. You got a chapter there that talks about military service members and families adjust in the world today. And this kind of leads into that. What I was going to say was, I remember when I was a military brat, the world was so different. It wasn't quite as it wasn't quite as tumultuous or as dangerous to the individual as it is today, it seems. Because when I was a military brat growing up, there I was barely in the early part of junior high school, or even my last year of elementary school in sixth grade. And I could hop on the bus with one of my other military Air Force brat friends, and we would ride from Hickam Air Base on Oahu to the Ala Moana Shopping Center and the International Marketplace. And, I was barely around 10, 11 years old. And we just, we went all over the place without our parents. Now, we had a friend with us. But, in today's world, things have changed so much to where parents are scared. I may be scared to let kids that young out. So what do you talk about in that chapter about adjusting to the world today? Because it's so different.
So in that chapter, I speak from the point of view of the soldier, the service member, and some of the things that they have to do today. For instance, COVID-19. That was diffused because we had soldiers that were helping with the Mercy ships and helping to get the supplies with the Production Act. We also have soldiers. I speak of the different branches of the service and their the different things they do, like the disasters and tornadoes and hurricanes, because all the climate change and things now. But mainly soldiers I speak of, we go back to the Constitution, where the soldiers are here to help protect our justice and our freedoms, and how important it is to have your freedom. And because of the soldiers, we're able to do that. And I'm able to write this book and have the free speech. So I don't want people to think that soldiers aren't important.
Yeah.
And they are here. And this is why America is a great country, because we have our soldiers that are supporting all of us. So that's mainly what I speak about, the different duties and different jobs they do. The soldiers are doctors, they're lawyers, they're cooks, they're, every job you can think of, technicians, teachers, soldiers, and they're in every career.
Yeah.
And even now, with computers and cyber security. And as you mentioned, it is different on the base now. And so it is harder for the families to adjust because there used to be a time it wasn't always locked up to go in and off the base unless you lived abroad. But it's in
Yeah.
America now. No one gets on base without an ID card or
Yeah.
something now.
Well, I want to add something to that because, you were talking about how the military, the military members are so important in every aspect of our country, and I have to say from personal experience, the soldiers, not only soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines,
Yeah,
they
National
not
Guard.
only, yeah, they not only um, help out with things when it happens within our country. And, I remember I was almost in tears, when I was in Desert Storm after the ground fighting stopped. We were set up not too far from the Euphrates River, and there were a lot of refugees coming. And we were in a big base that was surrounded by concertina wire just to, keep our safety. And there were a lot of refugees, and there was an Iraqi woman that came up to the concertina wire where me and a couple of my soldiers were standing, and she was carrying a baby, and she was very upset. And when she opened the blanket with the baby, it looked like the baby was just covered with measles. And you know how dangerous that can be for a child.
Mhm.
So I looked at that, and right away we got one of our medics to come over to the wire because we couldn't let her in,
Mhm.
just to check. And sure enough, the medic looked, and he said, "Yeah." He told me, he said, "Sergeant, we can't do anything here. She's going to have to go to the UN center a little further down the road where they have the right medical set up." So we did. We got one of our Farsi speaking military intelligence guys to come and explain to her that we couldn't help her here, but go down the road. And I just remember seeing the look on her face with that child. And as she started to walk away, she had tears in her eyes, and there wasn't anything else we could do for her. But as a military member, you're right. We're trained and taught that we're to be responsible for so much, and especially for the country, for other people, and that adjusting, like you're talking about, and adjusting as the mission changes, it becomes very important.
And families have to adjust too. I do mention some things in the book. Being a military brat or child, you live abroad, so you get to see things. And
Yeah,
because I'm not that young, I actually, I've been on the Berlin train. I mentioned all of that, going across the communist territory
yeah,
and what it feels like to go at night when it's pitch dark across the territory where you don't know what's going to happen.
yeah.
And just little things, living there when the Berlin Wall came down.
Mm.
So those experiences help you set a tone to help other people realize the freedom that we have here in America. So I do speak about different things like that, and different places that I have been to, on field trips with my school and also with your parents on weekends. When you live abroad, you can go see things that normally you wouldn't see as a tourist, only for a little bit of time.
Yeah,
And you get to immerse into the environment with other people. And to me, all those things are valuable, and military children they have a stamina, and they have this drive, and they have this talent, and I think they're gifted, that they can really make a difference in the global world. So the purpose of the book is to help military children realize that even though they go through all these sacrifices, there
yeah,
are things that they can give to the world, and they can make our world a better place. Because now everything is global, people travel,
yeah.
but their experience, many military children speak more languages, and their exposure to other people just opens the realm of, I would say, goodness in the world.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of lends into the chapter you have on military children's way of life and the things that they can do, the opportunities they have to do things that so many other children don't. living in different countries. But you kind of lended a little bit into the last chapter there, as you were talking about military children make a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you were trying to get them to see how important their lives can be and how they can make a difference with things. So how do you kind of relay that? What do you say?
Okay, in the last chapter, I mentioned famous people that have that were military brats. For
Okay.
instance, I mentioned Senator John McCain,
Yeah.
Natalie Morales Rhodes, who was a morning show host.
Yeah.
I mentioned Suzanne Collins, the author of the Hunger Games. All these people come from different walks. Athletes, Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LeVar
Yeah.
Burton, he has a game show now, but he was a big Reading Rainbow star. And all these people have made an impact. Tiger Woods, Bruce Willis, they were all military brats. So something instilled that in them to make a difference in the world. And they have excelled at what they have done. And so the point I try to get across is, even though you're living through a military life where you have to move every couple years, you have a life that far exceeds what you would ever experience in a different life.
Yeah.
And use that. You're awesome. You're resilient. We hear about military children needing a lot of mental health now, but they are resilient. And if someone teaches them that they have a story that they can tell and share and make the world a better place, more of them would feel better about, the things that they've gone through.
Yeah.
So I just felt like the book, to me, my brother passed of COVID and my parents died pretty young. So I felt like our life history and our life story is important because we did, travel all over. Dad gave his life for the military. He probably had PTSD when they didn't recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But despite all of that, all my siblings, we all went through college, and we were able to do things that we had the gift to do. And being a teacher, seeing these students in the classroom now, I want them to be able to identify with their life and share it and not be ashamed.
Yeah.
But it's okay to be a military child.
Well, I want to ask you. No, I mean, this is a lot of good information, and just a little bit of teaser about what's in the book. And so I do want to ask you before we wrap up, though, if there was a particular, how can I say, message in the book that you definitely would like to come across, one particular message, and I know it's full of information, but is there a particular message in the book that you think is important that you would like to identify?
Well, to me, deployment is hard. It is a way of life, and especially now with all the wars all over the world. I met a person today that told me that her son just graduated from West Point, and I can't mention where he's going, okay?
Yeah.
She didn't know military protocol, so she told me where he's going, but she wasn't supposed to. And so we have soldiers going in remote areas now that, the news won't tell about that. But the deployment part, I try to make it kind of light in that I talk about the good things that we did, like when Dad came back and Muhammad Ali was in the airport, to me, and how we prepared to see him again, and how we were overwhelmed when we saw that he was okay, and how we sent songs and records during that time period. So the message from that with the deployment is that, we have the internet now to connect.
Yeah.
And I would like to see students and even children, keep journals and write down what goes on in their lives, or draw pictures so that you can reflect back and share. But through that, we grow and we make it better. So
That's a
Each
good point.
each chapter ends with military children have gifts, and um, they have talents that can be used,
Yeah.
and they are awesome. And to me, they are the best children. Um, you
Well,
know,
I mean, that's a valid point. I have to say, and I think a point that's well to mention. Well, Laura, I have to tell you, I'm so glad you could come back on again and join us, um, especially now that your book is getting ready to come out. And for the audience, again, Laura's book, Military Brats, Well-Traveled Lives, should be available on Amazon in about another week. They're just finalizing everything. So for those of you that are out there, you should go out and take a look. Oh, and there's a comment from Barbara Wilson.
that
Awesome
is,
information. Yeah.
they were my neighbors in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're following you around. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of military friends that are, like I said, they become family.
Yeah. I mean, and I like I said, it's great to have you back on again. So I want to remind, yeah, there you go. Can't wait to get your book. Um, I want to remind our audience it's going to be available in about another week on Amazon.com. So take a look. The holidays are coming up. This might be a good gift to give to someone for the holidays. And Laura, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to come back and share more about your book now that it's coming out.
And I
And
can't,
yeah, I mean, and so I'm going to have to keep in touch with you to see how it goes.
and I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my story with people across the world. And also, I want to make sure that people know that it is my desire to recognize the service of the military families
Yeah.
given for our freedom today.
Well,
And, I
I
thank you.
appreciate that. I mean, that's important. So, we definitely appreciate that. And for those of you, for our audience out there, you're watching, as I said, don't forget, let's take a look. Look for Laura's book in about another week. Yeah, go ahead, Cece, you can put up the veterans. Yeah, there you go.
And it'll be on Amazon.com.
Okay, yeah, on Amazon.com. So don't forget. I also want to share with the audience tonight is our piece of information. Veterans Info Holiday House Fire Prevention Seminars, December 15th, 2024. Holiday Fire Safety, Doug Fishman, Operation Helping Hand Register. You can register free at eapready.com for Doug's seminar, and he does emergency preparedness, but he's especially keen on holiday safety this year. So for those of you who are out there, take a look at eapready.com. You can register for Doug's seminar free to talk about holiday safety, especially around Christmas time. So audience, take a look at that. I also want to thank our veterans out there for joining us and their families. Veterans, as always, thank you for your service. We appreciate what you do for our country and the families that support you. And so we hope to see you again on WGSN-DB's Going Solo Veterans Corner on the new streamingnetwork.com. And for those of you that are here tonight, please join us on our next show.
Thank you again.